Such and such. What the heavens am I doing? I'm exploring astrology. And some of that through the wonderful song called Giant Steps, written by the great John Coltrane on a saxophone larger than this. In fact, I'm a tenor player, but it's much easier to sit here, and I like to be grounded when I sit and talk about the heavens, because the most important planet is Earth, and it's much easier to sit down and play this alto, which is also the instrument where I got my start as well. We're hearing some things that speak to the code of the heavens, because the heavens and the Earth are married. Uranus is about to become Tauranus, yeah? May 15th, coming very soon to a theater called you. This planet that is so astrologically associated in modern times, and for some good reasons too, is moving into the sign of Earth, Taurus, the fruit, the flower. It wants to be tasted and smelled and pollinated, and this is so necessary for the tree, the world tree, whose branches go to the heavens. If the roots will sip from the waters of hell, we go below and above and marry to find the middle way. So bringing the heavens, Oranos, down to earth, Tauranos, is going to do some amazing things for our craft. It's going to help spark and earth amazing things for our world. We're starting to see this already. And one of the things that's going to happen in the craft, and I'm really stoked about this because it's the way that I teach, is the Earthstrology, the embodiment, the sentient experience of the heavenly harmonies. The planets, you see, they are instruments who have particular timbres, and they sing the note of the sign in which they reside. We are surrounded at all times by some celestial symphony that resonates in the heart of Gaia. This is where we measure astrology from, in the center of Earth, because that's the one place where we are all connected. Do this right now, my friends. We're pointing at different stars, but down through our spine, we all combine and embrace in the heart of our beautiful planet. She resonates the celestial chord outward, broadcasting it to all of us at once. And the whole is the center, is the below. That is the signs. The surface is the houses. That's the particular, just as where you are right now. It's a different vibe than where I sit in Seattle. Yeah. Different cultures on the surface, but the center, the whole, where we all connect. In fact, I see great Gemini from Dietrich, who sent yesterday to me a video by Stephon Alexander, who is a man who grew up in New York. And the video, I've linked it there in the description above. You can go check it out. It's a very short a TED talk that he spoke about in regards to his work that he calls the jazz of physics and the physics of jazz. And he speaks about how connecting to Coltrane via Yusuf Lateef, another wonderful saxophone player and a great educator within the realms of music and theory, helped him finally break through a problem where he was stuck in his own research of physics regarding gravitational waves and relativity, and that the answer was these tetrahedrons, and how stacked and mutating tetrahedrons map not only the progression of a diatonic scale, as we call it, but maps these relationships between notes. Yeah, so this song that that Stephon Alexander plays in this presentation, which is from Coltrane's Heart, the song called Giant Steps. Fun too. I'm having a hard time with the same note that Stephon Alexander has a hard time with on tenor in that video, but this song is playing what in astrology we call grand trines. And so let me dig into that a little bit, but first just to speak about the importance of this idea of Uranus, the heavens coming to Earth, Taurus, is going to help excite things like seeing the chart in the sky. Yeah, we draw this little crescent thing on the chart and this sun, circle and a dot on the chart, and it's great down here. It's even more amazing up there. Hey, the sun is right there right now. And the moon is not yet risen, but will, and once she does, I can put one hand to the moon and another hand to the sun and feel this trine shape that I see on a chart in a line drawn that represents one side of a equilateral triangle, especially last night, moon was trine sun squaring Venus, and I went down to the sunset and I gave a hand to the sun and the one to the moon, and I felt the trine in my body. And then I moved my sun hand to Venus and I felt the square in my body. And so taking this kind of intellectual thing out of space and bringing it into the body mind, into the sentient experience will help us re-nature our craft. And as we do, we will find the roots of the rules and the proofs of the equations we use. So when I speak about it is Earth who is resonating the heavenly harmonies, we literally receive the above from the below. And of course, the surface matters. This is where we live. And in astrology, this shows up as the houses on your wheel. Because in the Celestial Symphony, it's a very different experience if I'm facing the bassoon versus facing the John Gray. Sorry, that meant facing the trumpet player. It's a different energy, and yet it's still the same chord. The chord is resonating in the heart of the earth. That is the whole. That is the signs. You can relocate your birth chart to anywhere on earth, and you'll find the planets are in the same degrees of the same signs and the same alignments to one another. It's the houses that change. The houses are the surface, the particular. And so the particular and the whole that meet. Okay. So Dietrich sends me this video yesterday. It was really amazing to watch. I was out in the park contemplating, as I want to do, the heavenly happenings and noticing them in Earth. It speaks so much to me when the crow barks 3 times. What is that in the astrological map of the signs of the heavenly happenings, like right now? And I learned so much in that way, because really in all of these cosmic contemplations, if it's not reflected here in nature, it's not real. And we want to start with the most important planet, the planet that we chose, that chose us, Gaia, and this is why I'm always pouring old teas when I speak astrology. And where my quest of learning to see the chart in the sky without a computer, to be out there and say, oh, cool, like Regulus is culminating right now. Oh, in the south, Virgo is at the midheaven. Oh, I see, and doing these things and helping astrologers train themselves to witness in their body mind what we're considering intellectually, so we can marry the heavens and the earth. Yeah. And this is an incredible tool. I teach, my students will tell you, through geometry and through musical harmony, as much as also speaking about the archetypes and, the equations and the rules and the history of the thing, to really connect to a sentient, embodied experience of astrology. This is what my heart sings for. And this, I believe, is something that will be one of the many gifts of Uranus coming down to Earth and becoming Tauranus. So it's said that in the day, for the initiate to gain entrance into the hallowed halls of astrology, which was the highest of the lower mysteries, we would first have to engage with the sacred sciences known as the Quadrivium, and they are the sciences of number, and number in space, which is sacred geometry. This is the zodiac, by the way. 6 go into the circle and 6 go out, and they are phased by 30 degrees, so we have our 6 points and our 6 flats and whatnot, and 12, and number in time, musical harmony, frequency, the vibe, 12 signs in the wheel of life. 12 notes in a diatonic, well, I shouldn't even say chromatic octave. And now this is like a Western musical trip. I mean, there's many different types of scales from different cultures and whatnot, but there's a very important reason why we can divide the space of an octave, which is the doubling of a frequency. Say you tune your A to 432 hertz, as many of the New Age movement want us to do, and it's fun. There's 432,000 miles in the radius of the sun, or 43,200 seconds in half of a day, and I could go on and on. But twice that, which is 864, if you tuned your A to 432, the next A, the octave, would be twice that, 864. Faye, you say, I thought astrology was the lowest of the higher mysteries. Yeah, I think that's what I said. Maybe I mistakenly spoke this. But yes, above that, who knows? Grace, love, connection. But the entrance there is the study of number in nature, number in space, sacred geometry, number in time, musical harmony, number in space and time, astronomy. And the wonderful thing about these subjects, like, I don't teach them, I introduce them because they are the teacher. Astronomy teaches you astronomy. Until you get out from the small screen, under the big screen, you will not connect the truth that when you feel a trine of pointing one hand to sun and moon in your body, this matters. Or watching the moon tonight, and then tomorrow night, it's like, whoa, she really moved. Yeah, and I could see that in the nights happening. honoring that the rising in the east and the setting in the west and the primary motion is the best, you know. And so there's so many things where I can be a matchmaker. Yeah, but the true teachers, like the teacher of geometry, is geometry. And she is willingly accepting students, by the way. Simply draw circles and see what happens. The teaching of harmony is harmony. So I can play this for you and this for you and tell you one is a major triad and another is an augmented triad, and this might talk about a trine and a square versus the grand trine and etc. And that's cool, but it's just going to sound confusing as hell, or heaven. But when you come down and bring to the keyboard, map the 12 signs of the wheel of life to the 12 notes of an octave, suddenly it will come alive for you. You can say, oh, wow, okay, Venus is in Aries in my chart. And the sun is in Leo. And, oh, that's how they relate. And now I'm not only acknowledging it on a chart, I might learn to see that in space from Earth, but I'm now earthing it by bringing it into my body's experience. So let me just kind of tell you how you can do this with the keyboard. You can get yourself like this, a very cheap melodica. This was less than $30. I would suggest to myself buying a greater model so it would sound better. Right? But this is an instrument with reeds in it. And so it's an air instrument. And when I hold down a key, now the air will pass through that reed and produce a sound. So I'm blowing right now and nothing until so many different experiences in those three harmonies I just played there. All right, so what I do, and others have done this differently at different times, is I take Aries and I map it to A. So I've been told in the Rosicrucian traditions they will put Aries, the first, and there's a good reason for this, to C, which many of us see as the first, because the key of C has no sharps and no flats. In other words, it's just all of the large keys. But for me, C as a being, and this is important because I can play a square, which I will tell you is a minor third there, or I can play it, and I can play it, or I can play it, and I can get all over the place. And in a sense, harmony is relative. So I could put A wherever I want, or Aries wherever I want. I could say Aries is D, and then Cancer would in that case be F, and there I get my square, Aries Cancer, still as minor third. Just as much as I do when I put Aries at A and Cancer at C. It's the same harmony, relatively. It's the same literal mathematical relationship that I'm experiencing in the interference of these two frequencies. Yeah. And, you know, in some senses, a square is a square, you know? And yet, is that square different when it's here versus here versus here? And yes, is there a difference between Aries and Cancer squaring one another than between Virgo and Sagittarius? Yes, absolutely, especially considering which planets are in those notes or signs, because the instruments, for example, an Aries, Mercury, and Cancer, Mars square tells a different story than a Virgo Mercury in Sagittarius Mars square does, doesn't it? It does if you know that Mars rules Aries and is in fallen Cancer, and Mercury rules Virgo, and yada, 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 right? But why do we have these rules of rulerships and exaltations and relationships between signs that are benefic or malefic, you know, and that whole rap? So we can just say, oh, that's bullshit. Or we can say, that's interesting. Why? Why did the ancients say this? And for me, this says a whole lot more about a square, and this says a whole lot more about a square than any words ever could. And I can fly this thing around in your face, but until you sit and learn how to draw a square, which, trust me, is not as easy as it looks, because the rules are you can use only the compass, which curves, and the rule, which lines, and that's it. And it's tricky, actually, to find your way the first time to square. And it's something we should each initiate ourselves into rather than being shown how to do this. And so I will just present this to you. And say, try Aries at A. It maps Cancer to C, and sure, that's fun because in the English language, at least, Aries begins with the letter A and Cancer with the letter C. But see, these beings like signs, these archetypes are also, that's true for the notes. So, and keys. So C is a being, A is a being, and for me, the C being is much more resonant with the Cancer being than it is with the Aries being. Because Aries, and we might want to say, okay, Aries related to Mars traditionally, to Sun traditionally. There's some sharps in that. And the key of A has 3 of them, where the key of C has none. In Cancer, maybe it's a wonderful place of these C's to feel no sharps and no flats, or that there's so much in the troughs of the wave that it actually evens out in the middle in some ways. But again, you could start anywhere you want. So what I do, and there's many ways now we could map from there, but I put Aries at A, which if you're just learning keyboard, is the first white key within the black 3s. And sorry, the second one, I'm like looking at my camera and it's a tricky thing. But really, maybe I'll create a diagram that shows a keyboard with the signs on the notes. But you could also just find a piano diagram that will tell you that this is A, B flat, B, C, D flat, D, E flat, E, F, G flat, G, etc. And then you can just map Aries to A, Taurus to B flat, Gemini to B, Cancer to C, Leo to D flat or C sharp, Virgo to D, Libra to E flat or D sharp, Scorpio to E, Sagittarius to F, Capricorn to F sharp or G flat, Aquarius to G, Pisces to A flat or G sharp, and that brings us back to Aries at A. So put 2 Aries together, and that's the octave twice in frequency. One of those was not quite mathematically pure, you might have heard, right? Again, I could invest in a better harmonica or melodica, this is called. And there's all sorts of ways to get keyboards. You can do this on a stringed instrument. And Robbie Seeger's on here, he's a master guitar player, right? And actually this is where the theory came from, is looking at, if I take a string and then cut it in half, I play the octave. I just doubled the frequency by cutting the wavelength in half. And now we see sound and physical theory coming together. And so string theory, this is the old school string theory, right, brings us into Pythagorean tuning, which is a very, mathematical system based on fractions. And so from here, we're going to get into some levels of music theory, which might sound as distant to you astrologers as the talk that I'm usually expressing here does to the musicians, right? So I can talk about, Aries and Cancer and the grand square and the cardinal signs, and the musicians are like, what the fuck? Or I can say, this is just a diminished seventh chord, and the astrologers are like, what? And one of my goals is to bring the two together. Yeah, and I'm certainly not the first. But it's an amazing thing to say, okay, we'll just hear a T-square. And a grand cross. Yikes. And the musicians, there's somebody who just wrote a note here, John Gray, who can tell you what note is happening when the door squeaks. I mean, some people have ears who are so tuned into the musical. Some people have astrological experience, tuned to the planets. And bringing the two together will help us really earth this craft. So for astrologers who are after that, this tool is an amazing thing. These tools, in geometry, really the tools are the compass and the rule. But the shapes that we produce, they are amazing teacher beings. For example, I can take a wheel that's divided into 12, and there are very good reasons why it is, for this is how creation creates. It is shown here too. And I can take that 12 and I can bring a triangle. Actually, let's start with the square. And I can say, all right, there are only 3 ways that the square is going to connect those 12 signs. In astrology, we call this what? Cardinal, fixed, modality, and mutable, the modalities, which are really called the quad triplicities, 4, right? There are 3 4s in the 12. Yeah? So cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So I could say, all right, I'm turning this thing to Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. Now it's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. Now it's Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces. Now it's Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, Aries. Wait, that's the same one as Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. There are only 3 ways to do the square. How many ways are there to do the trine, the triangle? 4, triplicity, which we call elements. You could go Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, fire. You can go Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, earth. Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, air. Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, water. Virgo, Capricorn, Taurus, earth. Well, I skipped one, sorry. Leo, Sagittarius, Aries, fire. We're back to the fire, right? I could take the 12 and it's got 3 4s, modalities, 4 3s, triplicities. So I don't know if John and Robbie are on here still. But musicians, what if I divide this thing into 4s? Well, let's divide it into 2, because I can take a circle and I can split it in half. Astrologers, what do we call that? We call that the opposition. Yeah? Aries, Libra will cut the 12 into 2 hemispheres. Taurus, Scorpio, Sag, Gemini, Sag, etc., right? So the 12 are 6 pairs. Well, what happens if I cut an octave in half? Musicians? We get what was known for some short time as the devil's chord, the tritone. And it's a pretty tricky experience. Well, astrologers, many of you will know that the opposition was known in a pretty similar way. It is known as the Saturnian aspect. And then you could do Saturn, Satan, Devil, Santa. Wait, sorry. You know, and see that that tritone and that opposition, they have this resonance that is an incredible interference pattern that does all sorts of things, including the blues, because I can like... But when I bring a little tritone to that, it gets a little or a lot funkier. And the church would have burned me for playing that note some time ago, right? So if you know the Thema Mundis, the so-called chart for the birth of the universe with Cancer on the 1st, Capricorn is the 7th, and that's where Saturn dwells, opposing the moon, and yada, 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 and that's the Saturnian chord, the opposition, and we can hear that musically. So if I cut an octave in half, I get this so-called devil's chord, the tritone, which we now call the blues note. Either way, it does that thing of the opposition. And in number, you know, we're looking at how 7 is halfway from 1 to 12, basically. Or really 1 to 13, where the 13 is the first, and we could play that game all day, and I'm going to bring it back to this. What if I, instead of cutting the octave in half, which brings that tritone or the opposition, what if I cut it into thirds? The tetrahedron, where if you watch that video I linked above by Stephon Alexander, The Jazz of Physics and the Physics of Jazz, you'll see that the gravitational waves are tetrahedrons. And so are many, many things in crystalline structure, etc. Okay. And some will even say that you and I energetically are shaped like one of those and one of those combined and spinning, and who knows. But when I take the Wheel of 12, as far as astrological signs are concerned, I find 4 triplicities, which are the elements: fire, earth, air, and water. Then fire, earth, air, and water. Then fire, earth, air, and water, right? There's 3 ways to take my triangle. Sorry, there's only 4 ways for me to move this triangle through the 12. There's 4 unique triplicities, which we know as the elements. And this is true of the keyboard as well. So let's say I start at C. The way for me to divide the octave into thirds in music we call an augmented triad. That's C, major third from C is E, the major third from E is A flat, the major third from A flat is C, then I'm back to E, then A flat, right? So that will take me all the way into infinity in both directions through these frequencies that agree in this shape. And I could start, instead of C, the next half step or the sign neighboring, and that's D flat, and I'll find in that experience another way. That last note was off, by the way, but another one of these. Or I could start at E, or I could start at F. I skipped a note. C, D flat, D, or E flat. When I get to E, I'm back to the same one that began in C. It was C, E, A flat, C, E, A flat. So if I start at E, it just goes E, A flat, C, E, A flat, C. And there's only 4 ways that we can divide the octave. And it's done by musically what we call the augmented triad, or what we call in geometry an equilateral triangle, or what we call in astrology a grand trine, which connects the elements. And it's what we're hearing in giant steps. Kind of. Because really, the grand trine here is and Coltrane's showing us ways where this tetrahedron is connected to another. So I'll just translate, though. It's really in a different key. I'll do the kind of... The thing is, the alto saxophone is square to the concert pitch. So actually, in this case, it really doesn't matter. And for those of you who speak astrology and music, and I know we're kind of a rare breed at this point, but that will change in these next 7 years, I promise you. You'll understand why the alto being square, which means a minor third, to the concert pitch allows me to take this transposed song and still speak about the same triplicities and quadruplicities of astrology. All right, so... So that grand trine is like Gemini. It's the air trine. Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. And then these two notes. Sorry. These two notes. They're from one of the other elemental trines, and specifically from the water. And so Trine here, just in this passage, is connecting the mind and the heart. Now, whether that's intentional in his own writing, and Trine, it is said, was interested in astrology. I haven't found exact proof of that, though I imagine I could if I look. In creating this symmetry, in this exploration of symmetry in music, which Stephon Alexander has opened and found relationships to the symmetry in nature and in gravitational waves specifically, applying the astrological awareness and the elemental awareness helps this story become one of a greater entrance into spiritual contemplation. And there is no doubt that this is what Trine was all about, especially at this time, Giant Steps album and beyond, where he started opening literally into a record called Interstellar, you know, and he was having a lot of conversations with spirit, and he devoted his music to God. And the astrological awareness to say, wow, I mean, just in this passage, I'm connecting the full grand air trine. That's actually the grand air trine. So to get from, in this case, I'll just say, where would that be? Aquarius, Libra, and it wants to get to Gemini. But first he's like, no, Aquarius, Libra, you're going to have to meet, I'm trying to transpose here, you're going to have to meet Cancer and Scorpio to find your way there. Actually, Cancer and, no, Scorpio and Cancer. And then he goes to the other ones. So he says, all right, here's the air, but we need water. And then here's the, oh, I should have played this in concert pitch. Here is another essence of the air, But this is how it looks when tuned through fire. And here's the fire and the earth. He's bringing, in a sense, these four ways, these four triplicities, which we know in astrology as elements, and he's showing you how they converse with one another. And I'm going to have to break that down, not live, because as you can hear, I haven't done this yet, but I'm super interested in exploring this, because the idea is, like, most importantly, you know, just to experience the resonance, the frequency of the music. I mean, we don't need to break it down philosophically. We're receiving the codes just by sentiently in our body, mind, ears first, bringing our spiritual awareness into resonance with the frequency. But we can then bring a little mind to this thing. And my encouragement here, for myself as much as anything, is to bring the astrology into the body, so now I can experience sentiently and then come back consciously into what this means on a spiritual level. Some of this, the whole point of the thing is not to know. But some of the reason why the whole, the one thing which cannot be divided, allowed ourselves the perception that is so we can start measuring things and see how they relate to get more understanding about spirit and soul. Of this, I am sure. And we have this wonderful gift, this craft called astrology, that helps say, okay, here's that, this is how it's going to work, you know, whatever. But when we connect to the why, again, the roots of the rules, the proofs of the equations we use, we're going to understand a whole lot more about how the whole thing works and what we are here for. This I am sure of. So I'll say this again, find a keyboard and map Aries to A, and that's going to get you set up to hear what Aries Taurus does. What Aries Gemini does. There's Mercury and Venus today. What Aries and Cancer does. What Aries and Leo does. Or Aries and Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sag, which I could also play down here. Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces and Aries. And I get to find some of these relationships. I can see that Aries, Leo, Sagittarius is the same sound as Sagittarius, Aries, Leo. Or Leo, Sagittarius, Aries. In other words, I'm just taking this grand fire trine and I'm spinning it around the wheel. And Tanya says, sounds like a traffic jam. I mean, it is. It's really interesting. Listen to this sound. Here, I'll do it from, I'll play Aquarius and Gemini and Libra, the grand air trine. It's very suspenseful, you know? I mean, this is, it's a little easier to handle, isn't it? That we call a major triad in music. And it's a trine and a square. Or here, this is a minor triad. This is a square and a trine. So astrologically speaking, this is Aquarius and Taurus and Virgo. So I've got the Aquarius Taurus square, and then I've got the Taurus Virgo trine, and when I play them together, that square and that trine we call a minor triad. Or I could play Aquarius, Cancer, and Virgo. And in Aquarius, sorry, Aquarius, Gemini, and Virgo. And Aquarius, Gemini, I got the air trine. And then Gemini, Virgo, I have that mutable square. So I can go trine and square, major triad, or square and trine, minor triad, and I can utilize beings that help link two signs who traditionally are said not to be able to see one another. It's a wonderful thing that I engage with in astrological consultation that I won't explain here, but I will be in September for Astrology Hub in a master class that I call Cosmic Permaculture or Celestial Commerce, and there's a lot of other things, okay? But this sound of the grand trine, it's too much. It's too open. And it's an amazing thing, because in astrology we'll just say, oh, that's like the most benefic thing possible. But even that, it wants to resolve. We want some of this tension for the sake of growth, for the sake of stimulation, you see. And then we can bring that back to what the texts say about grand trines. And we'll find, now that we've experienced this sentiently through the audible experience of harmony, that suddenly it makes not sense just because somebody told me that and I believe my teacher and the elders are true, but because now it's in my body, you see. So we split the octave in two and get the tritone, and we find the devil's chord, as it was said, reflects the opposition. I'll just address, Jen Santiago just wrote, is there another way to resolve that? So we're talking about taking the, what's called in music, the augmented triad, which we call in astrology a grand trine. And what I did is I took that augmented triad and I turned it into, instead of a grand trine, I took it to a major triad, which is, instead of a trine and a trine, now a trine and a square. And yeah, I can do anything. I mean, I can like, which is the same thing as playing, which is a minor triad or a square and a trine. I mean, there's just so many different ways we can play, and our charts show us these different things. And we can have transiting planets that help the heavenly harmonies that are our song, you know, at the time of our birth, and hear how they shift and evolve through progressions, and hear how transiting planets can stimulate notes that help some discord in our nativity, or some like broken harmonies come into, I shouldn't say broken, but some dissonant harmonies come into consonant harmonies, right? We want the dissonance. If you have a song with no tension, it's not really pleasant to listen to. It's just boring. And that's what we see in astrology. I mean, we want some tension in the chart that shows us where the action happens. I mean, that's why astrologers are so focused on this by transit. Where are your squares? Where are the oppositions happening? Yeah, where's the action coming from? And don't do enough of this. But the beautiful perspective is that, let's say, like, you know, Pluto and Capricorn right now is opposing your Cancer Venus. Well, it might also be trining your Taurus moon. And so we now understand how that Taurus moon and Cancer Venus in your nativity, with Pluto now in the sign of Capricorn, he's doing this to Venus, but he's doing this with the moon. And most importantly, he's just trying to remind you of that harmony in your personal song in your natal chart. So it's really important, I think, when we want to focus on these action things and like the fear-based things too often, to understand also, yeah, there's a reason why that's tense, and where does it resolve? You see what I mean? Or there's a reason why things can just be like over bright, and how can we bring them back into something we want to experience on Earth that helps us dance? All right. So the last thing I was playing this when I started this transmission, and musicians will know that I'm playing through the cycle of fifths. Though I missed a note, didn't I? So I'm doing this thing where I'm taking the octave and I'm taking the wheel of 12 and I'm just mapping it 1 to 1. I'm saying, okay, Aries is A, Taurus is B flat, Gemini is B, Cancer is C, and therefore I can hear the difference between square and trine. And the quincunxes get really interesting in the opposition. And the so-called semi-sextile, which the ancients did not consider a aspect at all. And that's why they are of different dimensions. And I can explore the astrological rules musically, and it's really helped me, as has drawing these geometries. It's really helped me understand, again, the roots of the rules, the proofs of the equations we use. But to also understand, you know, why this chromatic thing, or maybe even more importantly, what we call diatonic, that major scale, as we call it, in the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? Like, that's actually built, it's constructed not in this way. It's constructed and I can like run out of room, but through the relationships of fourths and fifths. And so musicians, we're talking about adding a sharp or adding a flat, right? Subtracting a sharp. Astrologers, I'm moving through the quincunx signs to create a 12-pointed star. So if I move from Aries to Taurus to Gemini to Cancer, and I make a 12-sided shape, which would be this, was twice as many points, right? Which is called a dodecagon, 12-sided polygon. I'm touching every sign, right? So the other way I could make 12 lines and complete the circle is by journeying, for example, from Aries over to Virgo. That's the quincunx, or 5/12. That's called an inversion, 150 degrees. And then I could go from Virgo to Aquarius, and Aquarius to Cancer, and Cancer to Sagittarius, and Sagittarius to Taurus, and Taurus to Libra, and Libra. Well, you get the point. So basically, in the end, I make a 12-pointed star, which is the dodecagram. So the dodecagon, like this is a hexagon. If I was able to draw this like this instead by connecting the dots, I get a hexagram. Gram being the star shape, gon being like the polygon, the shape, okay? So a 12-pointed polygon is a dodecagon. Just think of like, you know, just think of this with twice as many points. Or a 12-pointed star, and there's different ways to create a 12-pointed star, but a 12-pointed star, which is the one that probably comes to your mind when I say that, or I think, let me see, I've got Deb Holding's Temples in the Sky book right here. Right. Dodecagram, 12-pointed star. This one's not necessarily how I would draw it to transmit this, but that will come musically when I take the wheel and go through what we call the cycle of fifths or the cycle of fourths. Okay? So if I draw A, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D, or D flat, D, E, E flat, F, whatever, in a circle like this, I'll see that when I venture out to draw the 12-pointed star, I am creating this movement through, in one direction, what we call the cycle of fourths, in the other direction, the cycle of fifths. So musically, I'm going from C, for example, the fourth note of C, hold on. Sorry, you can't really do that without leaning on me, you know, but so 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth of C is F. The fourth of Cancer is Sagittarius. The fifth of C is G. The fifth of Cancer is Aquarius. Cancer, Sagittarius. Cancer, Aquarius. Beautiful sounds, right? And what a trip that we're told that these are aversions, the quincunxes, that they're not even there. Well, C has no flats and no sharps. F, Sagittarius, right? C was Cancer. F, Sagittarius has one flat. G, Aquarius, has one sharp. So the scale with one flat or the scale with one sharp, they are closest to the scale with no flats or no sharps, you see. This is the magic of the circle of fourths in one direction where we're adding a flat. C goes to F. C has no flats. F has one. F goes to E flat. E flat has two. No, sorry. F goes to B flat. B flat has two flats. B flat goes to E flat, which has three. E flat goes to A flat, which has four, etc., like that, right? Or in the other direction, C goes to G. C has no sharps. G has one. Goes to D, which has two sharps. Goes to A, which has three. Goes to E, which has four. Do you see that, right? And when we bring that type of relationship into the astrology, again, geometrically, what I'm doing is I'm creating a dodecagon. I find the longest way to connect the 12 signs, okay? The longest way, the shortest way to divide the circle is the opposition. So Aries to Libra comes right back to Aries. That's the shortest trip. The next shortest trip is like, where'd you go? This. Aries to Leo to Sag back to Aries. Yeah? The next shortest way is this. Aries goes to Cancer to Libra to Capricorn back to Aries. Yeah? Aries goes to Gemini, to Leo, to Libra, to Sagittarius, to Aquarius, back to Aries. That, by the way, musically, our music friends, that is a whole tone scale. How many whole tone scales are there? 2. Just like there are 6 flats, or 6 lines, and 6 points. The 2 different dimensions, as I like to call them, the sixes and the sexes. In astrology, we call that polarity. There's the air and the fire, blades, and there is the earth and the water, chalice. Okay, and musically, there's 2 different whole tone scales. Musically, there are 4 different augmented triads, triplicity, elements. Musically, there are 3 different diminished sevenths, quadruplicity, modalities, you see. But very importantly, the longest trip around, one would be the dodecagon, okay? Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, back to Cancer, right? And musically, that's like what we call chromatic. And I'm touching every note on the way there, right? Well, the other way is the dodecagram. The dodecagon is this 12-sided regular polygon. The dodecagram is the 12-pointed star. And so when I go from Aries to Virgo, or from Aries to Scorpio, the quincunxes, well, I'm calling Aries A, 3 sharps. If I go to Scorpio, E, 4 sharps. If I go to Virgo, D, 2 sharps. They are the ones that are most related to Aries, and therefore I can't even see them. If I'm playing with a bunch of cats and we're just playing free music, and I'm in maybe the key of A, if they go to C, it's much easier for my ear to know they went to C often for me than if they go to D, because A and D are so closely related. Or in the other direction, A and E are so closely related. And we would never think this really, well, Aries and Virgo, or Aries and Scorpio. And yet what happens? Aries and Scorpio traditionally both ruled by Mars. Aries and Virgo traditionally and truthfully, Antisha. And so the music starts helping us connect the astrology in a real experience. And very importantly, this thing was not created in this way. It's created this way. And again, I'm running out of room. But if I go through the fifths, and it's easier for me to, then I have to take that down an octave. I'm doing that. And really, I can't do it on a saxophone either, but I'd want to go forever, because what's happening is I'm taking the vibration and I'm bringing a fraction, 2/3 of the note brings me up to the fifth. And then the fraction of that brings me up to the fifth of that. And so this major scale that we play, the way that it's created in nature, you know, like in number, isn't in that order. It's actually so to play the scale, we're connecting them in this sequence, but where it really comes from is not gone but gram, not the shape but the star. And so I can connect and just go all the way around the circle. I went around almost twice just then in this star shape. Aries, what I'm doing here is the fifth, so it's like Aries, Scorpio. Well, I need to like map this out and write it, but it's Aries, Scorpio, Gemini, Capricorn, Leo. What's amazing, because I'm getting confused because I'm also speaking archetypes of the Venus star right now, and that's like a different thing, but also not. Anyway, Aries, Scorpio, Gemini, Capricorn, Leo, Pisces, Libra, Taurus, Sagittarius, Cancer, Aquarius, Virgo, Aries, Scorpio, and I go back, right? So I just connected, I just connected all 12 signs, but not going from Aries to Taurus to Gemini, but rather Aries to Scorpio. Like I connected this 12-pointed star. And that is actually how a scale is built. Or let me say how the traumatic thing, this, it's a lot easier for me on a saxophone than that other thing, right? This is my horn. But it's a lot that way of just, okay, like Cancer to Leo to Virgo. It's cool. And we will watch the planets move from Cancer to Leo to Virgo, etc. But the way that it's actually built in number, which is nature, is and then etc. And those things which span all this amount of like frequency, we can just take you and put you here, and you and put you here, and we put you here, and suddenly now have this even row instead of etc. And so exploring these connections like Cancer with Sagittarius and Aquarius, these quincunxes that are said to be adverse, and so many astrologers don't work with them at all, as the place where this 12-pointed star goes. And one of the reasons of the invisibility is, in a way, we're not supposed to know until we initiate ourselves. This has been a lot longer than it was meant to be, and I will be teaching courses coming up of sacred geometry for astrologers and musical harmony for astrologers. Right now, I'm working on astronomy for astrologers, not only because I feel that's the one that is more in demand and can bring people into this temple, but it's so important for us to develop a direct connection with the planets. And if I ask you or invite you to go outside tonight and see the phase of the moon and reflect upon that as an aspect, you're out there doing it, and that works. You know, this other stuff, it's a bit more mystical. But as we're engaging there and we come back into the astrology, suddenly it's in us. Actually, it's blossoming from us. It's not something we received and then echoed and putting our own little twist on it, which is beautiful. But we're actually connecting again to the roots of the rules, the proofs of the equations. And I can't describe the experience I'm going through, or that I have witnessed many students initiate themselves through, but the completion within the astrological realms and this route, it's profound. And I truly believe this is one of the greatest gifts to our craft, that Uranus in Taurus is inviting us to connect. It's nice to connect with you here. Whether you're watching this in real time or later on, thank you for spending the time and listening, literally listening to time. For musical harmony is number in time, which is one of the ways we get to astronomy, number in space and time. All right. If you feel like giving back for what you've received here today, you will find a donate button at morethanastrology.com. And I sincerely, with utmost gratitude, appreciate any support for my study and sharing. It's a great gift when I see these donations, you know, even a few dollars come in. It's an amazing lift. And yeah, I should create a Patreon site and all that stuff. But I'm here to like share. And so the support of that, very helpful, and thank you. You'll also find a services page at morethanastrology.com if you would like to enjoy a personal journey through your own celestial song, your birth chart, and how it's changing shape and tempo and such in this time now. And you'll find a little kind of mysterious thing about, yeah, I also tutor and teach and share in that regard, but speak to me directly if you'd like to set something up, because not my approach isn't for everyone. So might be for you, though. All right. Thanks, y'all. See ya in space.